There you go, friends. Hi, Doc South here. I think, another nice tale of Chester, New Jersey, home of my youth. You see that airplane up there? Yeah, right up here. See, I don't know if yeah, there you go. Okay. That's a model of a Corsair. Yeah, Chance Vought Corsair was one of the big airplanes, fighter planes for World War II. Actually, its nickname was Whistling Death, being that when it was in a dive, it made kind of a whistling sound. Yeah, and it was no fun, I think, to have one of those on your tail. Well, my father flew those in World War II. Never got into combat. He was next, and the war ended. He probably would have been in the battle for Japan, but Japan, surrendered before that could happen. And so he was no stranger to high performance machinery. And most of his life, especially when we were kids, he'd get a car. Oh, maybe he'd get let's see, a '53 Chevy in good condition, and that would be our family car for secondhand, of course, used car, and he and the thing, maybe if you really pushed it, it might get up to 60, on a downhill grade, right? And we had that kind of car. We had an old Buick that I think he was kind of tickled. I think it got 6 miles to the gallon. Yeah, it was a '56 Buick V8. It was probably at the time the best car he had ever had, and loved it to death. Loved it to death. He had, but again, generally he would never buy a car new. He might wait. Say that '56 Buick, chances are he bought it right after the model '57 Buicks hit the showrooms. That way he'd get it a new car, but cheap. Right. This is how he thought, and he was wise, very wise. I wouldn't always agree with that when I was a kid, but now that I think back, yeah, the old man was a whole lot smarter than I'll ever be, and could really, he was a pretty good guy, good people. Well, anyway, so finally one day, I guess after working real hard and everything, he saw this car in a showroom. I think it was a Chrysler showroom, Chrysler Products, and it was I think, let's see, this would have been about 1963. There was this beautiful yellow Dodge in the showroom, and he loved it. He looked at that, and I think it was a case of he got it in the fall. It was that year's model, but it was fall, so he got it for dirt, and he bought it. And I remember he was just so tickled because it was a beautiful car. I think it was a kind of muscle car. I don't know the model Dodge it was. I know it was a Dodge, and I know that I remember him saying, "Look at this." I was about 17 then. Okay, I was about 17, so I was just learning to drive, and I'm looking at this car thinking, yes. and, and, and he's looking at me thinking, what do I know that he doesn't about this car? And he says, look at this. My real name is Mike. And he says, Michael, look at this car. Watch, we're riding in the car. I don't know, we're going into Morristown or something from Chester, home of my youth. And he says, watch this. I'll just hit the gas pedal a little. He hits the gas pedal just a little bit. Man, we both go back in our seats. Oh, whoa, what is this? My God, what kind of mileage? What was that? He says, I don't know. This thing's so darn fast. He says, I spun out in an intersection. I just hit the gas a little, and he says, my God. He says, this is so cool. And he says, don't tell your mother. Now, if you're riding her around, you just hit the gas pedal just a little. He said, you drive it however you see fit, but he says, just, be careful. I said, yeah. He says, man, look at this thing. He says, man, if I had this back when I was your age, oh, man, all the babes. I said, yeah, you're right. And so anyway, he has this beautiful yellow. I don't know what name a hot Dodge from '63, and that's what he had, and it was beautiful. Oh God! Every now and then he'd goof and he'd hit the gas pedal a little too much, and Mom would go out of her mind. You know, we'd be riding off to the supermarket or something. But one day he came in. He said, "Oh," he came in from work. He worked. I think in New York City, selling price tags and stuff in the garment district and such things like that. And he he comes into the house and he said, my mom's name was Marianne. He says, Marianne, make me a martini right now. Oh my God! And he sits down. He's obviously shook. And I'm thinking, we said, what's the matter? He says, you won't believe what happened. He says, that car saved my life, but he says, you just wouldn't believe it. He says, he says, you know, Lou Shan Hill, south of town on Route 206? I said, well, yeah. I said, sure. We're all the time riding our bikes down that thing. He says, I'm going up. You know, Chester was pretty much, all roads into Chester are uphill. Okay. Pretty much. And fairly good long hills. Lou Shan Hill, God, I'll bet you that thing's about a mile long. And it's steep like this. Here, if this is level, Lou Shan Hill would be like that. If you were riding your bike, you had your work cut out for you. And it's a long, long ride. To get all the way to the top without walking your bike, excuse me, you're doing something. Okay. So he says, I'm at the bottom of Lou Shan Hill, he says. And, you know, it's a perfect straightaway, friends. It goes straight, for about a mile, give or take. And he says, there's this tractor trailer at the top of the hill. He says, I see him coming around the turn. He says, and I don't know what happened, but the guy, maybe a deer ran out in front of him or something, but he moved, you know, like that. He just kind of had to move real fast. And he said it was one of those trucks that carries heavy equipment like, you know, bulldozers and such, you know, and earth graders. You know, earth graders, the big, yeah, they're like scoops that go around and just scoop out vast amounts of dirt, and then you go dump the dirt somewhere. That's what this truck would have hauled, something like that. And he said, my God. He says, and the guy I said, so what happened to the truck? Did he lose his brakes? No, he says, no. What happened? He was hauling, the driver had one big tire from one of those earth movers on the back of his, back on his trailer. Okay? And I don't know what happened. Maybe he didn't get the chain tight. Maybe maybe the chain snapped. But when he moved like that, the tire came off the truck at the top of the hill. At the top of the hill. He says, and I'm at the bottom. And he says, that darn tire starts rolling. You know, yes, just starts rolling down the hill. And it's going faster and faster. And he said it's going all like this, all over the, people are running for the, you know, driving into the woods. And he said, it's coming, and I'm at the bottom of the hill. It's going to be breaking the sound barrier by the time it gets to me, and it's coming fast. And he said it's starting to bounce, and the tires boom, 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 like that, coming down the darn hill. And he said, I don't know. I said, well, maybe you should have thrown it in reverse. He says, what good would that do? Now I'm backing up, and God, there's traffic behind me. Everyone's scattering all over the place. People are climbing up telephone poles, and then that's not going to work, because what if the darn tire hits the pole? And he's, oh my God. He said, I'm thinking of ditching into the woods, but I just got this car. And he says the tire's getting closer. He said it looked like it's doing about 120 miles an hour down this hill. And it's like that tire like that's got to weigh a ton, if not more. And it's moving. And he said it's like this, and boom, boom. And he says all of a sudden, he says the thing's right in front of me. It hits something on the curb or whatever. It just bounced again. He said, and I gunned it and I went right under it. I said, oh man, you went right under. He says, I got through. That car was so stinking fast. He said it was just like a fighter plane. He said I went right. Oh man, he said it was so cool. He says I peeled out all the way up to the top of the hill. The driver stopped the truck. He's running after the tire. Guys, is unreal, just unreal. Marianne, where's that martini? She's got one for him, a big one, yeah, in a bucket. She's got one. I was too young, but they said I could have a sip. And he says, oh man, that car, yeah, what a car. He said it was just like, he said it was like being in a dogfight. God, that was, I think he was hoping it would happen again. Yeah. Long story short, though, no one got hurt. The darn thing, evidently, the tire hit. I guess it hit the guardrail, and that veered it off to where it went across the highway into the uphill lanes, and it bounced over a guardrail, and then he said it went up about 15 feet in the air and bounced into the trees, and he said that's the last anyone ever saw of it. For all I know, it's still there. For all I know. That was about 50 years ago now, but doggone, huh? Yeah. Anyway, a tale of Chester for you and yours. Yeah, watch it on Shan Hill. Beware. Oh, beware. It probably doesn't. I had sort of the same problem on my bike going down Shan Hill once. I got going too fast. My tires weren't aligned, and so I got this wobble, but it's about all I can say. I hit the brakes and eventually I stopped. Traffic wasn't too afraid of me. But can you imagine, huh? Yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd say. God bless, friends, and absolutely true story. I'll see you later. Well, almost true. Well, darn near true. Okay, of course I embellished a little. It's storyteller's right. But the gist of it was a big fat tire, I think from an earth mover, was coming his way. And thanks to that car, he did get around it. So there's something to be said about a muscle car. I mean, try something like that in your Volkswagen. Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, there you go. We'll see you. God bless.